Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me down there in Tequila, Georgia, my good friend, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green, is here. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It's good to be back with you. Like we do this twice a week to talk college football, man. Big time games coming up this week. This is one of our 6-game SEC slates. No cupcakes this week. Not everyone's playing, but none of that Oklahoma versus Maine. Who did Mississippi State play last week? One of those cupcake.
Wait, I thought
Oklahoma played Maine.
Who did Mississippi State play?
Mississippi State was one of those. They were the other cupcake game last week, but put up like a 40 spot. I think that felt good about themselves.
That's a good point. I do not remember who Mississippi State played.
I think I had Tennessee, Mississippi State. They played UMass last week.
UMass.
Okay. They're bringing on the SEC year in and year out. UMass. I don't know how many SEC games they play a year. Georgia's got UMass, right? I think coming up in November.
UMass is one of those schools where it's like you're seeing like North Dakota State like in talks for Mountain West. I'm like, what are you doing? You got a good thing going. You're winning all the time. Like the grass is not always greener. Like Delaware's up here trying to get in. And I'm like, what are you doing? What's the goal at this point? You miss it. Like it's over. Like we're shrinking FBS. We're going to the Power 2 here. What are you dying to get in? Just stay where you are, man. Like if you're Idaho, moved down, and Idaho has been a lot better down there in Vandal country. Matt Green, like what are you doing?
If you jump up to FBS, then maybe you can get an invite to the Pac-12. You know, they're trying to get anybody to fill that conference.
UMass,
you don't
Pac-12
even have to
bound.
be on the Pacific Coast.
I just am like, if you're UMass, even UConn, go to FCS for a couple of years. Have some fun winning some football games again. It's not happening here.
Yeah, where's Villanova playing football? Like UConn can just join that conference.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All of them go there. Temple, it didn't work. You're one of the FBS's worst teams year in, year out. Time to go back down. Have more fun. Winning's fun. Just go down. That's why if we're going to go down this model, like relegation would be so much fun in this sport. And I think, it would just be, it'd be cool. Like you go down for a couple of years, you're like, hey, we tried and didn't work. And then it also gives the fans something where they're like, yeah, that kind of stinks that we're down there for a little bit, but hey, we're going to win some games and maybe we can get back into it and build some momentum and hire the right coach and this, that, and the other. Relegation, it's never going to happen in college football, but that would be the best way of doing realignment. It's just being like, okay, we're going to have this amount, and then you're demoted into kind of like how there's like those different leagues in Spain. You know, there's tier 1 and tier 2 and that kind of.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Just do that. That'd be fun. And then people can move up, and like Vanderbilt's out for a while, Northwestern's out for a while, and they go dominate.
I don't want to burst your bubble. You're not the first one to come up with this college.
Oh no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's the one I like. Like relegation and stuff like that is the idea that I've seen and agree with the most in terms of just if we're gonna do all this, that'd be a fun way to do it.
We talk about the amount of power these university presidents have in this sport. Like, yeah. You talk about something they would never go for. Mississippi State, Arkansas,
Purdue.
You know, they would never agree. Wait, we finished last and we do what now? Get out of here.
And then I would just look at it like, now you get to go have fun. Go beat up on North Dakota State and some teams for a little bit. Go down for a couple of years and maybe.
Well, you don't have to go all the way down there. That's like third level. The second level, you know, you're playing with Memphis and you're playing with Tulsa and these teams, right?
True. I was just going like I kind of like just have your 40 to 50 in tier 1 and then everybody else is in like tier 2.
Although not that I'm trying to relegate Memphis and Tulsa I feel like Memphis might one of those G5s that might get hang on into the top tier college football.
We'll see. We shall see, Matt Green. Speaking of the top tier of college football, the first CFP rankings and bracket came out last night here, Matt Green. Tennessee, an 8 seed, getting Indiana in a round 1 home playoff game, potentially. If the season ended today, Tennessee would host the undefeated fighting Kurt Signettis, which would be a lot of fun. I would be absolutely here for that, not just for a playoff game at home, but also getting Indiana coming to town. That would be an electric, fun atmosphere. here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So that would be cool. But what did you make of the first CFP rankings with a bracket? It was kind of jarring to see a playoff bracket for the first time, a real one, because you're like, oh, that's we're here. The 12-team playoff is coming, and you're going to see these brackets pop up, and the playoff model is here in college football, sir.
Yeah, I saw. Oh man, what's her name? That's on the college football playoff. Heather Dinich. Has the bracketologist label on her name now. So getting her Joe Lenardi on. But
don't tell Tennessee fans that they have a vendetta against Heather Dinich this season. She does not want to put she's like, you got to win out, and like putting Alabama in there if they beat LSU, and like they have a better resume than Tennessee if they're both 10-2. And it's like, well, look, if you're 10-2 and it's head to head, it's have to matter. Like if Alabama and Tennessee, it comes down to them for like the 4th SEC spot, and they're both 10-2. Sorry, like if Tennessee did beat Alabama. That should not happen. That is something that cannot happen. The head-to-heads have to matter in that. And if we're looking at that'll, let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Yeah, I think that's. Well, shoot. Yeah, if once you get into 2 losses, it starts to get tough. But I feel like if you have 2 teams right back to back in the rankings, like if you have Alabama, if you deem Alabama's resume like 8th at the end of the year and Tennessee's like 12th. Then it's like the head-to-head doesn't matter. But if they're right there, 8th and 9th or something, it's like no brainer. The head-to-head's got to matter. But my biggest thing when I looked at these rankings, so I feel like the resume should be all we're doing anymore, in my opinion. Like now we have 12 teams. Like you don't have to try to hedge your bet. It's like, oh, Ohio State's that year they played like 5-6 games. COVID year, and they still got in the playoff because everyone knew how good they were. It's like, yeah, we know they're this good. It's like that. I kind of was upset about that, but same time, we did know how good Ohio State was, and they were good enough to beat Clemson and get to the national championship game. But I think we have to go off a resume, and so I think Ohio State and Georgia, they're essentially, they both have one loss team with like one of those top 10 wins, right? Like Oregon definitely has the best resume, undefeated with the win over Ohio State. But if you have Texas at 5 and Penn State at 6, then I would think that would nudge Georgia over Ohio State, but that doesn't really matter. What I thought was interesting is where they decided to put all these one-loss teams, because this was kind of what I was alluding to last week when we did the blind resumes, was you have Miami at 4 and Indiana and BYU at 8 and 9. And I feel like there's just nothing to justify that big of a difference between those undefeated teams. Like there is not a strength of schedule advantage with any of those teams, really. Like you probably say Indiana's is the weakest, but to this point, but BYU has 2 wins over over current top 25 teams. Does Miami have any? Like,
I don't think so right now.
So I don't understand the big discrepancy there. And so I think that's going to have big repercussions in terms of now BYU and Indiana, you've established through 8-9 games, what they have done is worse than Texas, Penn State, and Tennessee. And if they continue to win, like what is the win that jumps them? Like, oh, if BYU beats Utah, like a 5-loss Utah team, now they're better than Tennessee. Like there's not really all of a sudden they win a conference championship and magically they're above them. Like I don't know. Like, so I don't really understand that in terms of where they left those undefeated teams.
Yeah, it makes me think though, because BYU at 9 and Boise at 12, I don't think it's out of the question. I think, did we talk about it earlier this week where like Boise could end up as a bye team and BYU and the Big 12 team isn't a guarantee. Like it's not like those 4 it's just the 4 highest ranked conference champs get it. So if Boise wins the Mountain West, they went out and the committee likes them more down the stretch than BYU. Boise could still get in the top 4 and get a bye, and BYU could be playing the first round.
Yeah, that feels like a coup against the Big 12. Like, I think BYU should be sitting there at like 6 or 7 right now, and BYU at 12 or Boise State at 12 is just absurd, honestly. Like Boise State ahead of Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, like a 1-loss SMU. Like I don't understand that at all. Seeing Boise State at 12, so
It
BYU should
feels
have
like
been
they're
able to
trying
lose
to
a
get
game.
their bracket in order, right? They're trying to do both things. They're trying to make it make sense for the bracket while also doing their top 12. You know what I mean?
Why would you want the Mountain West champion to be one of these teams with a bye week, with a bye? Like the Big 12 is still one of the power conferences, and that conference championship being to get the 4 seed in the playoffs. Like, I don't know. I feel like that would be better drama. Like, we know that top G5 team is going to get in regardless. Like, maybe Boise State can get up to be number 10 or 11 and they don't automatically get that 12 spot. But I don't know. I would have an issue with Boise State being one of the top 4 like conference champions. Like that would not sit right with me at all.
I don't think it's going to happen. It's just kind of funny that it's in play. And it also just depends on how crazy the Big 12 keeps cannibalizing itself over the next few weeks here. So I think it's in play. I just don't think it's likely, but I do think Boise winning out is very likely. So it doesn't take that much more craziness in the Big 12 side of things for Boise to continue to pad their resume with Ashton Jeanty and company, and the Big 12 to just keep eating itself alive. And if there's a 3-loss Big 12 champ or something, or a 2-loss Big 12 champ, and it's in play, depending on who wins the Big 12 and what it looks like. I don't know. We'll get into a gigantic game madness for BYU this weekend, too.
If some craziness happens and it's a 2-3 loss team, then yeah, that'll change the story a little bit. But right now we got BYU undefeated, Iowa State with 1 loss. So we'll see what happens with that. How do you make of what they did with the 3 1-loss teams, Texas, Penn State, and Tennessee at 5, 6, and 7?
Well, I don't understand how you put Penn State above Indiana right now. Like, that one to me doesn't make any sense because Penn State coming off that bad loss, Indiana's undefeated. I understand the schedule is a little bit different, but even I believe that Penn State's better than Indiana, but you can't put them above Indiana right now. Like, I don't really know what the rationale is in the same conference, Indiana not being ahead of Penn State.
Well, do you think Indiana should be ahead of all 3 of those 1-loss teams?
No. I think
so. Why should they be ahead of Penn State and not Tennessee or Texas?
I mean, I just think in the Big Ten, I think it's probably how I see the Big Ten versus the SEC and just how those teams have looked. I think Tennessee has looked better than those schools, and I think Texas has too. I think both would be favored on a neutral site in those matchups. I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm at. I'd be more annoyed if I'm an Indiana fan that I'm not ahead of Penn State, but I would get it in terms of Tennessee and Texas and just the SEC aspect to it. I don't know.
Especially like what happens if Indiana loses to Ohio State by, what was the score? By 7? What was the final score of Ohio State? They lost by 7. It was a 7-point game, Ohio State, Penn State?
Yeah, it was 7.
Like what happens if Indiana loses to Ohio State by 7? They probably drop to like 13, right? Yeah. Like it's kind of whack. I don't
know. I think Indiana's still in a spot where as long as they only lose 1 game or less, I think they're in based on how this is going.
No, and I hope so, because I feel like they've been like, they haven't had a strong schedule, but they've looked dominant. And I feel like you can say the same thing for like Texas to this point in the season and Penn State as far as that goes. Like my biggest thing was
they're going to be sacrificed though.
Texas and Penn State are both ahead of Tennessee. Who's Texas's best win? Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's Vanderbilt.
Who's Penn State's best win? Illinois? Tennessee's beat the team that you have at number 11 in your rankings. Like, I don't understand what Texas or Penn State have done that would put them ahead of Tennessee to this point. Like,
I would agree
their
that
loss
Tennessee
is worse, but
yeah,
I mean, quality losses. What are we doing?
Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of logic to it. All it does is just kind of explain who's going to get in, right? Like, you just can kind of see who's going to get in. But you can also, someone made a tweet about, like, here's something to keep an eye on. Look at who the home teams are in that first round and the size of their stadium. Someone made a note of that on Twitter, I saw. Penn State, Tennessee, Ohio State, and Texas would be the host teams in the first round. Those are big stadiums, and all 4 of them, big fan bases, big stadiums. Home playoff game in round 1. Like, there's a conspiratorial element where they're like, who would have guessed that the first round here, you're trying to, for the TV folks, that you're trying to get the best home atmosphere to the most amount of people in them.
In fairness, those are usually the best college football teams, are the ones that have the big stadiums.
Well, not that big. I mean, I'm talking like, these are the
a
biggest.
Few of the 100,000 ones for sure.
Yes. That was the main thing.
I wish we could end the season right here with this bracket, to be honest. Like, I'm a big rematch guy. Like, this bracket is beautiful in terms of just getting different matchups that we don't usually see. Like, as far as we're not going to, like, none of these would probably set up a rematch in the second round. Like, this looks nice right here. I wish we could just keep this right here. We'll see what the bracket ends up looking like in a few weeks. I know it's going to get messed up a little bit.
No, it would be cool. And I'd like Tennessee at Oregon potentially in that second round. That'd be fun.
Like Notre Dame, Penn State, like that just seems like a great playoff game. To play Georgia, like potentially Georgia, Penn State for the first time. And like, oh no, they played in Tax Slayer Bowl, I want to say. One of the years Saquon was there, Georgia played. That may have been, that was Rick. No, that was the game Brian McClendon was the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs after Rick got fired. So I want to say Terry Godwin had like a passing touchdown in that game or something like that. Georgia won. You better believe that. 2015 Tax Slayer Bowl champs for sure.
All right, Matt Green, week 11 pick'em is here. How are things for us in terms of the spread and our straight up here as we get excited to dive into Week 11, it's here. And like you said, some big games. Your team on the road in a big atmosphere, Tennessee. We're in the Summit Blues, homecoming. Not as big of a game against Mississippi State. Still cool, but not as it shouldn't be.
Summit Blues, man. Can we talk about the Summit Blues? Oh man, what are we doing here? How many uniforms is Tennessee gonna wear in one season?
They're still wearing the same orange. It's just they like do you know what the Summit Blues are? Or you just wear like armbands?
I'm well aware of the Summit Blues.
You just wear the armbands and stuff and socks and stuff like that. It pops, man. The Summit Blue pops.
So what I saw online was a
no. That's not happening. Yeah, no. Okay. It's just all no. You're wearing the same
wear light
orange
blue
uniforms.
Wristbands,
yeah, and
shoes and stuff.
Yes.
Gotcha. I guess that's not as bad.
They've done it before. They've done it the last, I think, 2 years. Maybe.
Not even gonna add a little baby blue to the outline of the jersey or anything like the women. No baby blue on the uniform.
No.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, glad we dodged that bullet. I could have got a whole segment about Tennessee wearing light blue jerseys.
No, that's not happening. I don't think you'll ever see anything like that.
All right. So as far as the pick'em goes, sir, I got a 7-game lead on you against the spread here. 10 weeks in, I'm 59-61-1 against the spread. You are 52-68-1 overall. Just a 4-game lead I got on you. At 81-40 overall, you are 77-44 on the season. And Zeus, Big Zeus, home dog of the week is 9-6 on the season this year. So, winning the people some money with that home dog.
All right,
and
sir.
There might be some home dogs on this week's slate. We'll have to see, sir.
There are there's some good home dogs in this week's slate, and I wonder if we'll pick the same one. My gut is we will, but we shall see. I don't think there's gonna be one home dog that
just
we're gonna jump on. Huh?
Could be more than one.
Maybe. I don't think we're gonna agree on the one in Oxford. Here in just a second.
Oh.
Mississippi State at Tennessee. The Tennessee Volunteers are 24-point home favorites, sir. What say you?
I would have to go kind of how I was talking last week. This team, the most they've scored in an SEC game this year is 28 points. Was that last week? I think 27, I want to say the week before. They're flirting with that, and they could win. They could beat Mississippi State by 24 and only score 28 points. This defense has been that good this year. But until Tennessee just truly dominates someone in the SEC this year, I'm going to have to take Mississippi State to cover this spread. I don't think they'll necessarily give Tennessee a game, but 24 just feels like a lot for this offense that we've seen score. Did they score a touchdown, or was it just a field goal in the first half last week? They scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
So 7 points in the first half in the last 5 weeks. So just for that, Mississippi State has kept some of these games relatively close. I don't know. They've been blasted in a couple of them too. Arkansas put up almost 60 on them. So this isn't necessarily buying Mississippi State. It's more Tennessee's got to show me they can just kind of dominate someone. And if it is anyone, it's probably Mississippi State, who's been just getting absolutely torched defensively this year. But I'm going to take Tennessee. I'm going to say, what score did I have? I think 38-20. Is that the score? No, 34-17. I'm going to take Tennessee to win this one.
But not cover. So I think that's probably fair. I mean, I predicted Kentucky to cover last week. I don't think that's how it's going to go this week. I've circled Mississippi State for weeks as the breakout game in conference play for Tennessee. Heupel's got a lot of experience, obviously, with Jeff Lebby dating back to UCF and Oklahoma, this, that, and the other. Like, they know each other really well. I think that's going to help this Tennessee defense is that this is an offensive style that they already practice against a lot every week. So I think Mississippi State, who've had a lot of success with big plays, like against Georgia, you talked about, that was a big one where they dropped 31 on Georgia. They get blown out by Arkansas 58, but they do drop 24 on A&M, 34-24 there. I mean, they have 28 against Florida. They're an up and down team a little bit, but Van Buren has got some juice. Freshman out of St. Francis up there in Maryland, high school powerhouse. So he looks good for them long term, but I think this is just a great matchup for Tennessee, both defensively and offensively. And I think if there was going to be an offensive explosion in conference play, this is the game. I think Vanderbilt's going to play keep away, and you're not going to see that. I think Tennessee will be fine matchup wise against Vanderbilt, but I just don't think it's going to be that kind of game where Tennessee blows them out or scores a lot of points. Georgia, definitely not going to be a game where Tennessee scores a lot of points. So if you're going to do it, it's this weekend against Mississippi State. The line kind of reflects that with -24. That's one of the bigger spreads we've seen for Tennessee. I think it's the biggest SEC spread for Tennessee thus far. Vegas likes this to be a blowout. And I think this is what I've had circled for so long. It's just that this Mississippi State defense is horrible. Their second worst pass defense in the SEC. They're last in giving up 10-plus yard plays in the SEC. And they're the worst in football power index in the SEC. Like, this is just an awful team that gives up big plays all over the place. If you don't get a lot of big chunk plays in this game, like, I just don't know when it's going to come. So I think that
Carson Beck only threw 2 interceptions against this team. So how bad must the secondary be?
Exactly. But I just look at this and I think if you don't, I don't think it's gonna be an issue, because I think Tennessee was so close to 40 points, breaking out in a lot of ways where they leave 2 big scores on the board against Kentucky with 2 drop touchdowns that would have put Nico over 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, they were close last week. I think you're going to actually just blow Mississippi State out of the water here on Saturday night. I think this is going to be more like a Tennessee-Missouri from 2 years ago, where it's going to be bombs away for the Vols offense. My gut is Nico's playing the best ball he's played all year. He's going to build off that Kentucky game, and they're going to take their shots against Mississippi State, and they are going to have their best offensive game in conference play against the Bulldogs. So give me Tennessee 58.
58.
Mississippi State 17.
Wow. All right. Calling your shot, huh? 58.
I think this is ugly.
That would be is that how many points Tennessee scored in conference play all season? That's a lot. That'd be an explosion for sure.
I think that's what's coming tonight or on Saturday night. That's my gut. This is the breakout game. This Mississippi State team, it's just a great time, great matchup. Tennessee's going to roll. They're going to roll, and it's going to catch some eyebrows across the SEC, where they're going to be like, oh, Tennessee, the offense is rolling now, and they still don't give up 20 points. So I don't know. This is a recipe for disaster for the Bulldogs.
What Mississippi State's been doing, though. I mean, Arkansas scored like 58 on them. Is that going to be is doing that to Mississippi State going to move the needle?
Well, I think people have just been waiting for Tennessee to do this in conference play. Like, they all believe in the defense, but they just haven't.
That's fair.
Yeah.
In terms of confirmation bias and everyone predicting Nico to like break out, as soon as they saw a big 400-yard game and 5 touchdowns, people would be ready to jump back on the bandwagon.
And this is an ESPN ABC best case scenario, because if Nico and this offense break out ahead of Tennessee, Georgia next week, that makes that game even more appetizing. You're like, Tennessee's playing their best ball. The offense and defense is loaded. Like, this is an SEC title type battle here next weekend in Athens. Like, that's exactly what you want if you're ABC and ESPN. And
I don't think you need to do anything to to make that matchup between the hedges, between the Vols and the Dogs, any more intriguing.
Saw you were trying to do a blackout for that game.
I've seen that, the Barstool. So I guess who knows, man. I personally don't like it. I think we gotta keep the main thing. This Ole Miss game's too big. We can't be focused on Tennessee down the road. Let's stay focused. All right. Yeah, who knows? All the fans always want to rock black. Everyone loves the black jerseys, so it's a night game, but I'm sure they won't wear black. So I'm not gonna get my hopes up. Having won too many times, sir. Gotten my heart broken by that. I'm not gonna go down that road. A lot of history
I just
down
don't
that
get
road.
it, man. Everybody else does it. I just don't understand it. Like, it's just not a big deal.
you-
It's one of the weirder things in college football. I don't understand.
You're telling me, man. The recruiting pictures,
Yeah.
we could do an entire episode on that by itself. I've had many conversations. I don't get it. Teams that don't have black jerseys do it all the time, but or that don't have black in their color scheme do it all the time. But
Well, speaking of the Dogs,
anywho.
sir, Georgia at Ole Miss. Ole Miss 2.5-point home dogs coin flip game in Oxford, sir. What was the spread last year for Ole Miss at Georgia? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I want to say it got down to single digits, like
Okay.
8 or 9 or something like that.
Because
I think they were like number 8. I want to say that was game day last year. I know it was Fowler and Herb Street, but it was like Ole Miss was like number 8. I want to say going into that matchup.
Okay. Well, what say you, sir? How are you feeling about this game against the Jackson Dart Carson Beck matchup here? Lane Kiffin still searching for his first big SEC victory, kind of in the James Franklin zone at Ole Miss right now, where he's just 9-3, 10-2 every year, solid, but nothing big yet. People are waiting on it. We all recognize good coach, but this is the kind of game you have to win at some point to be a great coach in this league.
I'm glad you brought that up, sir, because that's exactly where I was going to start. This feels like the one game on Georgia's schedule, at least so far this season, where they're not the team under more pressure. Ole Miss is the team. They're at home. This was supposed to be the best Ole Miss team ever. Like, there's also kind of obviously their playoff hopes are done if they win this game, but there's also kind of that whole Florida State thing. Like, oh, this is a team that's built on transfers. If we're out of it, our players going to start opting out and that sort of thing. So I think on top of just Lane Kiffin being a big game coach and all that narrative, like there's kind of a lot on the line for Ole Miss in this game. I've seen a stat that's been thrown around a bunch, 3-15 against top 10 opponents. I didn't find the same stat. I don't know if they're going off of when the teams were ranked. I did it based off of where teams finished in the polls, and I have Lane Kiffin as 1-7 against teams that finished top 10 since he's been at Ole Miss. Maybe the 3-15 could be dating back before he got to Ole Miss, but I have him 1-7 against teams that finished top 10 and 5-9 against teams that have finished top 25 in his time at Ole Miss. So that's pretty huge pressure in terms of, Georgia's been here, done that. They've been on 2 big time nationally televised road games, top 5 matchups. Like, they're battle tested. And I feel like Ole Miss, they still have a lot more to prove.
But it's just like most coaches at Ole Miss are going to have that kind of record in big games. Like, I think that's one of the things. It's just like that's part of being the head coach at Ole Miss is you're not going to win the majority of these games because you're not usually going to have the most amount of talent on the field in these big games. However,
but they're not being talked about like a typical Ole Miss either. Like,
right.
Typical Ole Miss would be happy to be ranked. They want more than that now.
So my gut is I think this is going to be a very different kind of game than it was last year. You, as a Georgia guy, and have seen this a lot more and have studied this more, Matt, I posit to you what makes you think this is actually going to be more of the same as to what we saw last year and not a close like 24-27 Georgia victory or something. Like, are you leaning, what would be the argument for this game being like last year? And what would be the argument against this game being like last year?
So what was last year? Was it 52-17? Was that the final score last year?
Yeah.
So I want to say it was 14-14 too, like at the end of the first quarter. Well, I don't think it's going to be 52-17. So I can start right there. But when I look at this, I feel like there's this narrative around Georgia that like we don't know what team, like we don't know what Georgia team we're getting week in and week out, But I think it's basically just because of Carson Beck, like throwing a bunch of interceptions. Like if you're going to throw 11 interceptions in 5 games, like have multiple games throwing 3 picks, like you can lose to anybody. But Georgia has scored between 30 and 41 points 5 weeks in a row. So they're actually the only team in the SEC that has 5 30-point games this year. Ole Miss has one 30-point game, and it was 60 they just put up on Arkansas last week. That game, like, absolutely, like, skews the hell out of Ole Miss's stats. Like, I'm not saying they didn't go into Fayetteville and put up 60 points, like it wasn't an impressive performance, but they were 11th in the SEC. And I'm talking just conference numbers, because Tennessee, I feel like, so let me start over. I feel like if you look at Ole Miss on paper, they have maybe the best offense in college football and maybe the best defense in college football. And I watch Ole Miss play and I'm like, there's no way in hell this team is one of the best offenses and one of the best defenses in college football. Like number 1 in total offense, number 1 in passing offense, number 4 in scoring offense nationally, number 2 in run defense nationally, number 6 in scoring defense, 22 in total defense. They are a completely different team when they're playing against a conference schedule. They're averaging 55 points per game in the non-con, and they're averaging 31 a game in the SEC. And that number was at 24 a game before putting up 60 on Arkansas last week. Like they were, like I said, they were 11th in the SEC in points per game last week, and now they're first. So there's a lot about Ole Miss's numbers that just kind of feel phony to me. Not phony, like I'm not saying they're a phony team, but in terms of these numbers are just, they do not reflect how good this team is. Like in my opinion, like I don't think Jackson Dart is the best quarterback in the SEC. His numbers would suggest he is. Like even the run defense, I think, is allowing 34 yards a game in the non-con and giving up 120 against SEC teams. Like they've been outrun. They've been outgained on the ground in like 3 of their 5 SEC games this year. So they don't have, against conference play, they just have not been the same juggernaut at all that they have when they're running up the score on these terrible teams. So that's probably the biggest thing that I still don't know what I think Ole Miss is. And I'm not saying Georgia's just going to boat race them or anything, but I feel like, first of all, yeah. What do you say to these numbers about Ole Miss's? Do you think Ole Miss's offense and defense is legit?
I believe in the offense more than the defense. I think the defense is more banger bust. I mean, Brandon Turnage is right in there. Like I like Brandon Turnage, but he was like the 5th corner for Tennessee last year, and he plays a pivotal role on that Ole Miss secondary. So I think that Ole Miss secondary is pretty suspect by and large, just when you look all around the guys in there. But I think the Walter Nolan aspect, like there's no fluff there. Watch the tape. Like Cole Kubelik and I think other people will just like, it seems like every week you'll see a Walter Nolan just destroying an offensive lineman and just getting through and wrecking havoc. Walter Nolan, serious. Princely from Florida, he's serious. So I think they have dudes who can cause havoc there, but there's still something about the Ole Miss defense I don't really trust every week, but I do trust the upside of Ole Miss's offense. Like Jackson Dart set the record this past week. Jackson Dart's high is a Heisman type quarterback. Like his ceiling when he is playing his best ball. Like Trey Harris is a legitimate dude. I think with Parrish and company and Bentley and their tailbacks, I think they're dangerous. I think they have with Juice Wells and this and the other. Like I think the offense is better than it was a year ago. I also just think Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. are really good play callers. Like I think that offense has more juice, and I'm a bigger believer in the offense on Saturday than I am the defense being able to hold up through 4 quarters against this Georgia team. Like I think that's the bigger concern if you're an Ole Miss fan, is like being able to stop Etienne, Frazier, Robinson, whoever, and get Carson Beck in this group off the field in the second half when they're leaning on this Ole Miss defense. I think that's the issue. I think Ole Miss at home and in this environment and with the way that offense is built right now, I think they're going to put up points on Georgia. Is my gut. I just don't know. The question is, can the defense match up for 4 quarters? And that's the big question to me. So I would say the offense is legit. I don't think the defense is more suspect to me.
The one thing that is not skewed in terms of their like statistics defensively is the sack numbers. Like they've been maybe they're skewed from some crazy outliers, but maybe they're not outliers if they keep doing this. But 8 sacks
Ole Miss is
second.
Arkansas, Ole Miss is second worst
Oklahoma.
in the SEC in giving up long plays in the SEC. The thing that I think will ultimately dictate this game, Matt Green, and we've joked about it, but the Carson Beck factor, and I think this will be huge on the road. UGA is 13th in the SEC in turnover margin. They're 13th. Ole Miss is second. Like you can mess around with the turnover margin against Florida on their third quarterback. You can mess with the turnover margin. Sometimes, Texas, just because Texas buried themselves in such a big hole.
But the margin, Georgia forced like 3 or 4 turnovers of their own. So yeah.
But when you're that bad on turnover margin, both in the SEC and nationally, like eventually that does catch up to you. Like if you keep playing this game where Carson Beck throws 3 picks on the road in Oxford or 3 picks against Tennessee next week, these are 2 teams that I just don't think you can keep getting away with it. You can get away with it once against Texas, but 3 top 10 teams, I don't think that's going to fly. So I think we'll know a lot of how this game's going to go is if Carson Beck coughs up the ball 3 times, I don't know if you're going to be able to survive that way against Ole Miss and win. I just think your luck is going to run out. You cannot play that game every week in the SEC against the top tier teams and expect to survive. Like that, it seems simple, but to me, the turnover margin is huge just because of how different these 2 teams have been turning the ball over this year.
Without a doubt. I mean, you're throwing 3 interceptions, you can lose to anybody. Like that's the name
Even
of the
2.
game. Yeah, absolutely. If you're turning the ball over, like you can lose to anybody. The crazy part is that Georgia's actually averaging 34 points a game in the game where he turns it over where he throws 3 picks, and they're averaging 31 a game in the ones where he doesn't. So, I can't really make sense of that stat. That's one of the silver linings is that Carson Beck making better decisions feels like a very correctable thing. And you've seen him be a really good quarterback. Like a lot is made of the Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey stuff, but they missed some games last year. And those were some of Beck's best games too, when he didn't have all his weapons, like the Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss run. I think Ole Miss may have been the first game Bowers came back for. But like Tennessee, like you saw him go on the road and not throw picks several times last year. So I believe the guy still got it in him, but even with that said, do you think Ole Miss's offense is better than Texas?
I like Jackson Dart more than I like Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, I mean the dual threat ability, like that changes probably how Georgia plays the quarterback, but I don't know. That's kind of what I just keep going back to is just how battle tested Georgia is. Like,
who do you think's better play caller, Lane and Charlie Weiss Jr. or Sark? Because I think Lane and Charlie Weiss Jr.
That's actually what I was gonna say. Like, they already beat the better former USC head coach turned Alabama offensive coordinator, right? Like Steve Sarkisian, I think it has been the better head coach to this point. Is that a hot take? Maybe the ceiling's just higher at Texas and it's easier, but at the end of the day, I mean, if Georgia doesn't turn this over, I think there's a chance they win this handedly. Like if Carson Beck's not throwing picks, granted, that's a huge caveat because this guy's throwing 3 picks like every game. At the end of the day, we've all seen the stat. Georgia's won 51 straight games against teams not named Alabama. Ole Miss is not named Alabama. So that stat is relevant until it's not, right? So I think you have to take Georgia, and I don't think Ole Miss is as good of a team as Texas. So, I mean, it's not always about, the transitive property or anything, but maybe that's the outlier performance from this Georgia defense to this point. We haven't necessarily seen them just wreaking havoc in the backfield like that, like they did against Texas, but it feels like they have it in them. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, I think Beck doesn't throw 3 interceptions. Maybe that's a hot take. And I think Georgia wins this one. I'm going to say by 2 scores. I'm going to say Georgia wins this one 31-21.
We disagree.
All right. What you got?
I still think Tennessee's a like Georgia's a bad matchup for Tennessee. And until Tennessee proves otherwise, like I just can't feel good about that game going into Athens next week. I think it'll be the closest it's ever been, with Tennessee's defense just being such a high floor situation that I think that game, I don't see how that game is not close with just where Tennessee's defense is at. But till the offense proves they can hit, like they can do something against Kirby's defense for 4 quarters, I need to see it to believe it. I just don't believe Georgia's going 11-1 with this group. Like, it will be a great testament if Kirby can pull this off. I still think you're not going to sweep Texas, Ole Miss, and Florida before the injury, because I picked Florida last week before Lagway went out. I don't think they're going to make it through. I think the receivers are a problem. I think Carson Beck and company, it's still a problem. I think they're thin in some key spots. I still have questions about that secondary. Malachi Starks seems like he's had a off year. I'm in that back end. I think this Ole Miss team is going to put up some points at home here. And I think Carson Beck, the people who are like, well, he'll clean it up. It's kind of like that Tennessee thing that he has to prove to me that he can clean it up, because he hasn't yet. And he keeps doing it. So I'm going to expect...
the difference is that we've seen Carson Beck do it before. We've never actually seen Nico do it.
Well, no. I mean, Nico's not throwing the ball to a team like this. Like that, Nico.
I'm just in terms of being like an elite quarterback. We've seen Carson Beck be that last season.
Sure, a lot better players. Lad McConkey, Brock Bowers, better situation. I think that it's gonna happen. So I'm sticking to my guns that Georgia is going to drop one of these and finish 10-2 in the regular season. And I still think right now, Ole Miss is a better matchup for Ole Miss than Tennessee against Georgia here in the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to say Ole Miss wins. I'm going to say Carson Beck throws 3 picks again.
No.
Georgia loses the turnover battle. And they lose. They get got here. And Lane Kiffin has his biggest win at Ole Miss. So give me Ole Miss 42. Georgia
putting up 42.
34.
On Georgia defense. All right.
Mississippi State put up 31 on the road.
Yeah, but that was whatever. We got up big. They started getting back into it. It's if that's what you want to use, that's fine. I don't put that much stock in that Mississippi State game. But one thing I will say that I meant to say on the top of the show after thinking about our conversation we had on Sunday, I felt like it was way too negative. I want to say Georgia Bulldogs have won 4 straight over the Florida Gators. That should have been what I started with last week, and I'm never going to feel bad about Georgia winning over Florida, even if they didn't look the best.
Is this the Buck Belue segment?
I just thought about it because I was just like, I was real critical.
You didn't think about it. This was a Buck Belue tweet. He tweeted this after the game.
No, I didn't see this Buck Belue tweet. Are you being serious?
I don't believe you. I think you're doing a bit.
Saw this. No, I'm not doing a bit at all. I'm talking about I'm a child of the 90s, sir. I lived through the Richt years, or through the Spurrier years, through the Urban Meyer years. Georgia's won 4 straight over the Florida Gators. They won by 2 touchdowns, right? Like, cruised to victory. It's never close, never in doubt. So I had to throw that in just for the record. Georgia fans are always happy about a win in Jacksonville. Also, the 3 turnovers that Georgia got in that Florida game. Now we're going to rehash this game. 3 times Florida started at midfield. So the 10 of the 20 points Florida scored did start when they had the ball.
Well, can I give you the Buck Belue tweet?
But obviously, if Carson Beck keeps throwing picks, that could keep happening. But yeah, go for it.
Performing at a high level at QB is difficult. A lot of variables. A lot of it out of QB control. Carson Beck threw it 40 times and had 2 at-fault interceptions, both bad decisions, forcing the ball to tight spots. Probably made 60 good decisions. Won by 2 TDs. Be happy.
No, so that's not the same. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
no.
Everyone's playing close games over here. Beating Florida by 2 touchdowns. Like, Tennessee went to overtime with it.
It was really just to be happy. Like, it was just that just reminded me. I was like, to be happy.
It was funny. I saw this is the ultimate silver lining, but it was like a little split of after the third interception, Carson Beck was 12 for 42 for 142 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. It's like, yeah, after the third interception, he was locked in. So
All right, that's enough
my
of
one
Georgia,
thing.
Florida. I can't do this anymore. I can't.
Yeah, we don't have to. But that's what my thing. People have talked about like what's wrong with Carson Beck and the yips and throwing out. It's like we've seen guys regress. Like he's just making bad decisions. Like we've seen guys play worse. We saw Sam Howell have like a worse senior year, right? Like we've seen this. He doesn't have the yips. He's not playing as well as he played last year. So I don't know. It's like I feel like it's being a little exaggerated. Like I'm not saying he's playing well, but like the yips is like dudes don't even know how to play anymore. Like that might end your career. So let's just pump the brakes a little bit.
Next up, Matt Green. Bama at LSU, the game of the weekend if it's not Georgia, Alabama, sir. LSU +3. What say you, sir?
I'll be honest, this game was another reason I picked Georgia to beat Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's comments about not getting the night game, I don't know. It seemed a little rattled to me. This one is similar to Alabama-Tennessee, I feel like, from this year, because Alabama's coming into this with winning 11 of the last 13, but the current coach, the current man in charge, is 1-0 when he's playing at his place. And so Brian Kelly, maybe the guard has changed and he's going to get a second win at home like Josh Heupel did. This is obviously going to be the best passing attack Alabama's faced all year, probably the best passing attack in the SEC. And I feel like Alabama's receivers have been getting exposed against not great wide receivers. And these are probably the best wide receivers they've seen all year. Milroe did run wild on this team last year, 155 yards and 4 touchdowns. But I don't think I trust Alabama to go into Death Valley, to be honest. I want the cleanest SEC scenario is LSU losing this game. And then like we've talked about, obviously Georgia taking care of business. And then the winner of A&M, Texas, and the winner of Tennessee, Georgia playing in the SEC championship. But I think it might get a little messy because it's not that I trust LSU. They're going to play a 4-quarter game because that's what LSU does. It's going to be a war. And by the end of it, Nussmeier's going to have the eye black smeared all over his face. He's going to look like he just played 2 games. So it's going to be a battle, but I think LSU is going to get it done. I think I'm going to say LSU wins this one 38-35. I feel like that the Missouri game is probably the most complete game Alabama's played this far. And I don't believe in Missouri really. So it's been a couple weeks, they both have a week to prepare, but an extra week to prepare. But no, give me the LSU Tigers to win this one at home.
We disagree here, sir.
I guess that's the home dog right there. LSU +3.
I get it. Bama has owned this series, and I understand a lot of that Saban, but this is a CFP elimination game. The numbers still really like Bama. Like every metric still just really likes Bama down the stretch here. So I think there's something to that. LSU has found ways to lose these big games. Like they should have lost South Carolina. They obviously lose to USC in the opener. LSU is just a hard team to get a read on. Beating Ole Miss, but I don't know. I just think they're all over the place. I think Garrett Nussmeier is one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC this year. That much is, I think, hard to go against at this point. But LSU is 33rd in points per drive. Bama's 12th. Everything to me, like Milroe has had a rough month go of it. Like you said, like the Mizzou thing, it's hard to the shutout was something that was interesting to me because I think the Bama defense is figuring some stuff out as the season's gone on. My gut is this is a good Milroe game. I think Milroe bounces back because we talked about just where this LSU defense is. Who do you trust more? I might trust this Bama defense more than LSU to this point. You mentioned LSU won at home this last game. That was in overtime. Like it was going for 2 to win with Taylor and company. Like this was not an easy win in overtime 2 years ago. My gut is this is going to be
like Tennessee, Alabama. It was a war for sure.
Yeah, my gut is Milroe has a very big game here. I think this is a bounce back game for Milroe, and Kalen DeBoer just does not lose until Kalen DeBoer really starts dropping some regular season games. I don't see it happening. I think Kalen DeBoer...
Hasn't he already dropped some regular season games?
I'm talking like 3 to 4. I'm talking like...
This could be it.
He's at 2. Kalen DeBoer, I think, is going to be okay here. So my gut is Bama and Milroe have their best game of the season here since Georgia. I think this is going to be a really fun game. Yeah, he's 110-14 overall. He lost 3 combined games at Washington, 9-3 that second year at Fresno State. But outside of that, the guy is just ridiculous in terms of ball games. And I understand Brian Kelly also attending to a double-digit win guy as well. So this is 2 honestly kind of underrated coaches, to be honest, at this point. But I think Kalen DeBoer gets the win here. First one for him in the Alabama-LSU rivalry. And Alabama stays alive. And LSU falls out of CFP contention here with their 3rd loss. So give me Alabama 38, LSU 34.
All right.
Next up here, South Carolina at Vanderbilt. The toughest one, I think, to pick in the spread. Pick them this weekend. Vandy, 3.5-point home dogs. Is this Zeus's moment, Matt Green?
Zeus's moment was with the LSU Tigers.
Oh,
sir.
he was your okay.
That's home dog of the week for sure. I'm afraid the magic is gone, sir. The Vanderbilt Magic, they're running on fumes, I think, at this point. I'll tell you one thing. I think I follow the SEC pretty damn closely, sir. I had no idea that South Carolina had beaten Vanderbilt 15 years in a row. I am shocked by this. I am shocked by that. I feel like they played a bunch of close games, too.
You caught dodgeball reference. I am shocked.
I am shocked. Absolutely. I think this South Carolina offense is kind of finding its stride. Like, they've just been making a bunch of big plays. Like, I had that stat about Georgia, the only team in the SEC with 5 30-point games in conference play. South Carolina is second with 4, and no one else has 4. So this team has been scoring some points, and we know about this defensive line. I think the magic was already gone for Vanderbilt last week, but Auburn was just so bad that whatever voodoo Auburn had mixed with the whatever, you know where I'm trying to go with it, it still wasn't enough. That game, it should have been 13-7 there at the end if Auburn doesn't get the penalty on the field goal, and then Vanderbilt's able to run a couple more minutes off the clock, make it 17-7. I think South Carolina is turning into a pretty good team. And I think they win this game by multiple scores. So give me South Carolina. I'm going to say 27-17 beats the Commodores on the road.
I'm right there with you in terms of I think the juice is failing down the stretch here for Vanderbilt. I think they're going to struggle down the stretch. I mean, you still have Tennessee, South Carolina coming off a gigantic win over Texas A&M. It's huge for them. You obviously get pelted by Texas. You look at
they
it
hung
like,
right with Texas. That was a 7-point win.
I'm talking about the offense. The offense did not look good against Texas. I'm saying the juice with the Diego Pavia, who's been a great story, but I just look at this. I mean, 17 points. That offense was awful against Auburn. And you really should have lost to Auburn this past weekend anyway. And you look at LSU, Tennessee.
It's hard to say because Auburn never really deserves to win with the way they're playing.
That's true, but I think they're gonna finish with a 3-game losing streak here. I think they're gonna lose their great season, great story for the Commodores. I think it's gonna get harder from here on out. It's a tough final 3 games for them. Vandy is still 3rd worst in FPI in the SEC. They're 51st in points per drive. I think there's just been this weird, like, Diego has been great for them, but people have associated that with just a really good offense. It's like Vandy's offense actually isn't great. Like, it's okay. It's a lot better than what it was. It's just they have an awesome quarterback. They find ways to stay in games. Their defense plays really well. But yeah, I don't see this going well for them. And I think South Carolina's got a lot of juice, and South Carolina could mess around and finish 9-3 here. So I think South Carolina's trending up, especially offensively. I think Vanderbilt's trending the other way. Give me the South Carolina Gamecocks to win. Let's go 31 South Carolina, 20 Vanderbilt.
All right, put it on the board.
Michigan at Indiana. The Hoosiers 14-point home favorites. What say you, sir?
Michigan has won 27 of the last 28 against the Hoosiers. Only win came in 2020 with Michael Penix Jr. I'm just gonna have to keep rolling with the Hoosiers until proven otherwise, sir. The 14, I don't feel great about the 14. I feel like this feels like exactly 14, but I can't pick the push. So I'm gonna say Indiana wins this one 35-20. I think Michigan is just not legit at all. So yeah, give me Indiana until proven otherwise, sir.
I think that's fair. I also think it's kind of wild. We're seeing these lines like Michigan. They are the defending national title, the national champions here, and they're 14-point road dogs at Indiana this year. And I mean, they've lost a lot, this, that, and the other. But some of these lines, and I think they've kind of figured out, is that Michigan's just not good. Like I was looking at their FPI projection the rest of the way. They're a 6-6 projected team, Matt Green. 6-6. The year after winning the national title, we saw like the drop off with TCU in Cincinnati, and you're like, okay, but yeah, you're a group of 5. You had a great story. Like you had the right quarterback at the right time, and with Ritter and Duggan and just everything coalesced for a special year. You're Michigan, and it's just, I understand Harbaugh left and everything, but like they are a 6-6 team. They are a 500 team. They have real problems offensively. I don't think this is going to be close. So give me Curtis Rourke back. Give me Indiana. Give me it. I think Kurt Cignetti's going to want to make a statement with this game. I think this is going to get ugly. Give me Indiana 42, Michigan 17.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you.
Florida at Texas. The Horns, 21.5-point home favorites. This one would have been a lot more interesting if DJ Lagway was available. Without him, this is just...
But he hasn't been ruled out. Have you seen this?
There's just no way he plays. I mean, he was on a cart last week.
They brought the cart out.
Yeah,
surely
like,
he can't
no
play
way.
the next week. Yeah,
that should be a rule.
Thinking.
I think we talk about fake injuries. You have to sit out for a series. If the cart comes out in a game, you got to sit out at least a week. You can't play that next week. You get a cart, you can't do it.
That's funny. So Florida has not scored a point on the Texas Longhorns in 100 years, sir. We all remember that 7-7 tie these teams played back in 1924. They actually played again in 39 and 40, and Texas shut them out those 2 years. So obviously, first time they've played in a long, long time. Yeah, I assume Lagway's not playing. So I want to take Texas big. The Florida defense has been, fairly respectable the last few weeks. I also just don't know, like, have we seen, like we saw last time we saw Texas, they beat Vanderbilt by 7, right? So, like, is Florida better than Vanderbilt? They don't have a better record, but I feel like on a neutral site, Florida may be favored against Vanderbilt. So, I don't know. I tend to think that Texas is not going to cover this spread. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be close, but I'll give the Gators, I'll let them keep it close here for a little bit. I'm going to say Texas wins this one 38-20.
I don't think Florida covers here. I think the bottom's going to fall out for Florida now. Like, they had that kind of just third
Definitely
quarterback fight. Maybe Lagway plays a little bit. I don't know. A lot of guys are out. Eugene Wilson out for the year. They got destroyed with injuries in that Georgia game. I just think they're running out of bodies. And I just think Texas is a bad body blow team to play. Like, getting Georgia and Texas back-to-back, the two probably most physical teams on both sides of the ball in back-to-back weeks, the two most talented rosters outside of maybe Alabama.
It's Ole Miss the week after that, right? Or LSU?
I think it's LSU, yeah.
Oh, man.
I actually have this to say, because I think Texas wins big. So give me Texas 48, Florida 14. Let's do that. Thing I wanted to say about this game, though, is not even about the game. Can I ask, like, for the Texas folks listening in here today, have you enjoyed this season? Because it reminds you of the last couple Georgia years where Georgia was just the preseason favorite. You're like, let's just get, like, the schedule kind of sucked, and Georgia fans were kind of longing for this year and next year's schedule. Like, we talk about no big wins. Your biggest win was at Michigan. You had UTSA, blew them out at home. UL Monroe, blew them out at home.
Vanderbilt, maybe.
But it's like these games, like Mississippi State at home, that's not a fun game for Texas fans. You win that comfortably. Oklahoma's down, so you don't really get to enjoy that because, yeah, you beat down Oklahoma, your rival, but Oklahoma sucks. You go
They can
to
probably always
Georgia.
enjoy that, though.
Georgia comes in. Georgia beats you, and that sucks. Your biggest game of the year, and that one just you fall flat in your face. You go over to Vanderbilt. You win there. Florida comes into town with their third string quarterback. That one's going to be a bummer. You go to Arkansas. Okay, you'll probably blow them out. That'll be fine. Kentucky.
Yeah, Florida
awful.
at Texas is definitely one of those brand name games that was circled
Yes.
when the schedule came out, but
it's just not going to be that. And then at
No.
A&M is going to be obviously the creme de la creme. But I'm just like, I wonder if you're a Texas fan, you're just like, this season, yeah, we're winning a lot, and we're going to go to the playoff, and we have a chance to win a national title. Didn't really enjoy this year. There wasn't a lot of fun, memorable experiences. Our biggest game was Georgia, and it didn't go well, and everything else, we've kind of blown everybody else out that we were supposed to, and I don't know. It just kind of seems like I would be really kind of I'm curious what Texas fans feel about this season.
well, that's the thing about that expanded playoff is that, like, I think that might make you forget about the regular season because you have a bunch of memorable moments happening in the playoff. But yeah, we talked about it, a while back. Like, I don't know, whose cornflakes Oklahoma peed in, but they did not get the same friendly schedule that the Texas Longhorns got in year one of the SEC. And I mean, there is still that A&M game at the end of the season, so that's going to be a big one. But yeah, I'm with you. There's so few like true like marquee games this Texas team has played in this year. But I'm sure if you're playing in the playoff at the end of the year, you're not going to be too sad about it.
No. Next up here, Matt Green. OU
What was your score?
and
Did you say a score?
48-14, Texas.
48-14. All right.
Mizzou hosting Oklahoma. 2.5-point home dogs. Mizzou, it's like, 2.5-point home dogs against this Oklahoma team is wild. Matt Green, what say you?
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all, to be honest. Not that I've been one of the biggest naysayers of Missouri all season, and even I was shocked to see them not favored in this one. Brady Cook is questionable, and as you saw, Drew Pine against that Alabama defense last week, like Drew Pine is not a good college quarterback, I'll say. Oklahoma, the last 3 games, has scored 26 points. Last 3 SEC games has scored 26 points. Missouri, the last 3 SEC games, has scored 27 points. Neither of these teams wants to win. Like, there's just something about the games these two teams have been playing all year. What time is this? Is this the 7:45 SEC Network game that they try to hide from the people? Or is this
Maybe.
Is this the nooner?
I'm not sure.
I'd have to look at it, but I don't know. I kept going back and forth on this. I feel like Jackson Arnold, maybe he's taken a step since getting put back in the starter role, but I don't know. I just don't really buy either of these teams. I think the team that gets to 20 points is winning this game, and I'm not even sure it's that many. I think I picked lower than that. I think what did I pick over here? I'm going to say Missouri wins this one. I'm going to say 20-14.
I think there's a case that Oklahoma figured some out. Also, Matt Green, who are the coaches the last time these two teams faced off against one another?
Oh, it's got to be Stoops and Gary Pinkel.
That's right, in 2011.
Yes, sir.
This is actually a positive of the realignment. We get Mizzou and Oklahoma again. That's cool.
That's true.
Noted SEC rivalry, Oklahoma and Missouri here. But
is that the 07 Big 12 championship that Missouri was like number 1 at the end of the year and Oklahoma ruined their chances, and then West Virginia was number 2 and Pitt ruined their season?
Yes.
Good memories for Mizzou people.
Oklahoma's won 18 of the last 20 in this series. I can't go against Oklahoma here. I think Oklahoma and Vegas know something. I think Jackson Arnold figured some stuff out against the mighty Maine Bears on Saturday night last week, Matt Green. I think Mizzou's got real problems. And this Oklahoma defense is legit. They keep them in every game. They kept them in the Ole Miss game for a while, and Ole Miss is a lot better. I mean, Brady Cook's questionable. We'll see what he looks like. He might come in. I think Oklahoma's gonna. This is like a great vibes win, and Venables needs this one. And it's not like beating Alabama or whatever or Texas, but I think this is one where you're like, okay, we're getting back on track, and there are gonna be more questions about Mizzou down the stretch here. I think Oklahoma's gonna steal this. Give me Oklahoma 24, Mizzou 17.
Yeah, I don't really feel good either way on this one.
Final couple here, Matt Green. Washington at Penn State, 13.5-point home favorites. I think this is the lock of the week. Like, I'm not sure there's a pick that I would be more likely to mortgage the house on than Penn State not losing back-to-back to Washington at home here. What say you?
Absolutely. They this is the trap people fall into after they see Penn State lose. They're just like, oh man, that team is just not legit. And then I think Washington will keep it close. Like, no. The properly rated Penn State Nittany Lions, sir. They take care of business against the teams they should beat. I think Penn State wins this and covers. I'm going to say 28-14.
Yeah, I think they're going to win big here. I think they're going to bounce back, take out some frustrations over what happened at home against Ohio State. I think Washington, another team who FPI has 6-6 this year. Not a great opening year for Jed Fish and company. So give me Penn State. Let's go Penn State 38, Washington 7.
Oh, man. Beating the brakes off of the Huskies.
I think so. Colorado at Texas Tech. Can Texas Tech destroy the Big 12 in back-to-back weeks? They are 3.5-point home dogs. What say you, sir?
Oh, see, that's where you're wrong, sir. They're doing the Big 12's bidding for them right now. Beating Iowa State. You had to get rid of them. Colorado, they're the chosen ones. Like they're the ones the Big 12 wants to get in that conference championship game, maybe get that first round bye in the college football playoff. Texas Tech's got the number 1 scoring offense in the Big 12 this year, number 2 total offense. They also have the number 16 scoring defense in the Big 12, which is last, and the number 15 total defense, which is second to last. So they've been getting into track meets with teams. Colorado's defense, I think if you're talking about wanting to get into a track meet, like I think Colorado's down to get in a track meet with anybody. And I think the defense will actually get some stops because they've been solid at times this year. So Shador, this offense, Travis Hunter, they're going to make their plays. I think Colorado gets it done. I'm going to say 42-35. Buffs win on the road.
Interesting. I also think Colorado wins here. I think Colorado is also the best. That's who. Look, no offense to BYU, very pro BYU on this podcast, but Shador and Travis Hunter in Colorado in the playoff would be a lot more fun. I think that would be a lot more fun of an atmosphere. I want to see Shador, who I think is the best quarterback in the country this year. I would like to see that the most come playoff time, but that'd be fun. Like in the snow potentially. Well, I guess it wouldn't because they would get a bye most likely, and then you wouldn't get a home playoff game. But either way, I think that'd be a lot more fun. So I don't think it's asking a lot of Texas Tech, who I still don't think's good. I think they're just kind of all over the place, and more like a 6-6, 7-5 team with Joey McGuire and company this year than actually like a Big 12 contender. Colorado's just, we've talked about it, quietly solid now. They don't cause a lot of news cycles or take up a lot of oxygen in news cycles anymore. They're just good. They're just solid. So I think Colorado withstands some Texas Tech love here and goes into Lubbock and wins. Give me Colorado. Let's go 42. Texas Tech 30.
All right, sir. Put it on the board.
Final 3 here. Clemson at Virginia Tech. 6.5-point home dogs in Blacksburg. What say you?
Clemson has won 6 straight in this series, dating back to 2011. And last meeting was 2020. So all 3, or I should say the last 3 of those 6 of that 6-game winning streak were teams that were in the college football playoff. So it's been a while since Clemson was one of those college football playoff teams. Do the wheels fall off the Clemson Tigers, sir? I think I'm feeling it. I think Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech's gonna pull the upset in Blacksburg, in Lane Stadium. Give me Virginia Tech Hokies, man. 23-20, knocking off Clemson. Clemson fans aren't gonna know what to do after this one.
Wow. I don't think it's any of that bad. I do think this is an interesting get-right game. I mean, Clemson, how they respond to that loss last week is going to be very, very interesting to me because, I mean, you heard Josh Pate and talking about the permanent damage and stuff that kind of loss did to the Clemson program this week. I'm curious how they respond because Cade Klubnik and company, they beat up on some bad teams for a while. They looked like they could compete with Miami. I never wavered on the Miami over Clemson thing. I think Clemson people are going to go overreact kind of to Penn State on where Clemson's at. I think they're still like a 9-3, 10-2 type team, but like you still have everything right in front of you for Clemson. You can still make the ACC title game. You can still make the college football playoff. It's not over, but now you have to get up off the mat in a tough environment. You need some
help though, right?
You need some help, but as you've seen with the Big 12 and all around college football every single weekend, help is very possible over the next 3 weeks here for Clemson. So I'm very curious how they get off the mat here. I'm going to predict Clemson to win this game. I think it's a big one for Brent Pry and the Hokies, but I think Clemson bounces back here and kind of corrects themselves. I don't see back-to-back losses for Clemson. Give me Clemson. Let's go Clemson 27, Virginia Tech 24. I think this will be close.
So 27-24, you're taking Virginia Tech.
No,
Clemson. The spread. No, you're taking Virginia Tech against the spread.
Yes, I'm taking Virginia Tech cover. Sorry, yes.
Right.
Final two here. BYU at Utah. 3.5-point home dogs in the Holy War. What say you, sir?
It's the Holy War, sir. And Utah's won 9 of the last 10 in this series. Preseason Big 12 champs have not come to play this year, but BYU's last win in Salt Lake City, 2006. So they don't win at Utah very often, Rice-Eccles Stadium. So Utah's lost 4 straight coming into this game. They have not scored more than 23 points against Big 12 competition this year, but 3 of their 4 losses are by 1 score. I think it's another home dog special right here, sir. I think the Utah Utes shock the world, beat the BYU Cougars. This is what the Big 12 does, man. It's just week in and week out. They're knocking off the top team. So give me Utah to pull the upset, 21-20.
Well, the Utes were upset in the last meeting, but like you said, they've dominated this series. I mean, Isaac Wilson was benched last week, I think, and this Utah team, I mean, it's just a season from hell for them, man. What is there to really, like BYU, Jake Retzlaff and company, a lot's gone right for BYU. I think that defense is legit. I think Jake Retzlaff is a really good quarterback to this point. Utah's 75th in offense this year. They're completing 53% of their passes to the quarterback position. I think this is a bad matchup for them. My gut is BYU hangs on. BYU keeps this thing going. I don't think you get more chaos at the top of the Big 12 this week. I think Utah, that offense, and they're just having a really, really rough year. And I think it continues here in the Holy War against the Cougs. Give me the Cougars to win, but I think this is a memorable one. I hope this game's still going when Tennessee wraps up with Mississippi State so I can turn my attention because I know they start like an hour or two after. So I'm hoping that it's a good game late because this will be my final CFB watching of the evening. So give me BYU. Let's go BYU 27, Utah 26. Let's say it's a 1-point ender here.
I'm with you, man. Just the other way. So that means you are taking Utah against the spread.
Yes. Iowa at UCLA here, Matt Green, to get to our 12. Friday night, you love this. UCLA, 6-point home dogs on Friday night against the Hawkeyes, sir.
You know, I love a good weekday road game, sir. I should say I hate a weekday road game for the team that's traveling. But this is the Iowa Hawkeyes, sir. This is Kirk Ferentz. You know, this guy, he's seen it all. He's been around the block a time or two. Also, this team's dropped 40 in 3 of their last 4 games. Give me another 40 spot for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Caleb Johnson, the Heisman contender that nobody's talking about. Guy's a workhorse. UCLA, Iowa's going to go on the road, take care of business. I'm going to say UCLA 40, Iowa 40, UCLA 21.
You know what's funny? And if you're an Iowa fan, this is probably annoying. Iowa, I think, would make the playoff if they didn't drop the Michigan State game with the way they're playing right now. Like you said, the offense is clicking. Brendan Sullivan, the backup quarterback from Northwestern, like they're figuring some stuff out with Tim Lester, new OC. They got some juice. The defense is always going to be there. Like you said, they dropped 40 on Washington, 40 on Northwestern, 42 on Wisconsin. There's real juice here. At Maryland and then Nebraska at home to close. If you didn't drop that game sandwiched in all this at East Lansing and the way you're playing down the stretch, Iowa would have been a playoff team, I think, this year. The Big Ten, I think they're
had two quality losses too. Iowa State.
That's what I'm
Ohio
saying.
State.
Like they're kicking themselves. If you don't drop that Michigan State game, I think you're a playoff team this year.
And they wouldn't have to get beat down in Indianapolis, so that's just
Yes.
even an even added bonus.
That's what I'm saying. Iowa is kind of tragic. Their offense kicks into high gear at the end here, and you're going to go 9-3 potentially, and it just won't matter.
Kirk Barron's going to be like, I told you guys, we just need to be scoring 16 points and holding the opponent to 10. That's all we need to do. We can win 10 games.
Give me Iowa. Let's go Iowa 27. I think UCLA is playing better of late. Give me Iowa 27, UCLA 20.
All right, put it on the board, sir. We disagreed with head-to-head with 5 games this week, so we'll see. We could have some movement in the standings here. We'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Matt Green, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to you in a couple days.
Yes, sir.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.